Welcome to Season 4 of the Lighting Your Way podcast. This season, we will hear from all types of guests who share their experiences, their insights, and their personal stories. Unlike the song's lyrics, for lots of people, the holiday season is not always the most wonderful time of the year. The holidays can be stressful, and for those impacted by mental illness, especially challenging. In this, our last episode of Season 4, clinical psychologist Dr. Susan Hunt shares her suggestions for managing the holidays. Susan Hunt, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking time to talk with me.
Thank you for having me, Betty. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation we're going to have today about mental health around the holidays, but I am confident that we can provide, or you can provide, some resources for folks. So thank you for having a conversation. Susan, for lots of people, right, the holidays conjure up Norman Rockwell. Norman Rockwell-esque mental picture of people gathered around the fire to enjoy friends and food and family. And for other folks, the holidays can cause them to feel anxious or depressed. And despite all the decorations and festivities, they don't feel so happy. Yeah. So, why are people stressed during the holidays?
Yeah, Betty, you're right. Holidays are a lot of things. They're a happy time, and a lot of different stressors can pop up during the holidays too. So they're really kind of a mixed bag of stuff. And, as far as stressful stuff, there really is a variety of things that the holidays can bring up. I mean, I think first you mentioned Norman Rockwell. I think we do tend to have sort of idealized notions of the holidays, and this is also sort of pushed in our culture and in the media. But we can have these sort of perfect expectations, that everything is clean and perfectly wrapped presents, and the kids aren't tearing each other apart. And the reality is, they're just never like that.
Right.
So the holidays are a happy time for many, and kids are crying and parents are exhausted. And so I think just in general, a lot of us do put too much pressure on ourselves to sort of have this perfect ideal, and it causes a lot of stress. And when we're dealing with, what we think things should be versus actually experiencing what is. And so there's that. But, I also think for many of us, as you mentioned, holidays can be a very vulnerable time as well. And it's a really important thing for our emotional health around the holidays to acknowledge that. I think number one, the holiday time can remind us of losses we've had, certainly loved ones who passed away. Grief is something that a lot of us are really coping with during holiday time. And I think also for some of us, kind of relatedly, holiday time can kind of amplify the sort of absence of a holiday you may have fantasized about, with COVID, and people say can't travel, or maybe they don't feel comfortable gathering yet. And, also, for families who may be having a loved one, or for an individual who maybe has health issues or, physical illness, that, the holiday they sort of anticipate, or they may have, kind of visualized, is different now. Yeah. And so that, holidays can bring up a lot of stuff around that too. And as you mentioned before, for people who say are in recovery, there's so much socializing that sort of surrounds drinking or food. And that can be something that can really create more vulnerability for folks who are, who have, say, substance use issues, who are trying to maintain sobriety. And then obviously for folks who are managing mental health issues, or other kinds of issues like that, the holidays can be an especially vulnerable time. So, currently, I think depression rates do rise. And, in sort of really difficult times, the holidays are a period that can be a period of crisis for folks who have depression or other kinds of mental health issues. And so you really, really need to have strategies and a support network around you before you hit the holiday.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
say.
yeah.
I mean,
And,
that's a
and
lot to unpack, right?
yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of issues, and to your point, it's not all that Hollywood makes it out to be.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and depression rates do rise during the holidays. I imagine they would, given all that you've mentioned.
Yeah, they do, and I think the other thing that's been more in the news lately, coming. I was about to say coming out of COVID. We're not out. But during this time of the pandemic, that anxiety has
Right.
rates have really risen, sort of off the charts, both for particularly for teenagers and young adults, as well as adults. So that's another particular mental health issue that we really have to pay attention to uh, at holiday time and any other
Oh.
time of year.
Yeah, I mean that's well, and as you were talking about, just all the things that impact the holiday, experience. When you mentioned COVID, I thought, right, that's yet another one. All the other stuff kind of goes every year, right? The financial
Mhm.
burden, the travel, the visiting family, but then you
Mhm.
add in COVID and the anxiety around being in a large group, because we've seen COVID rates, infection rates rise after Thanksgiving, right? When people gathered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they expect it to happen again during Christmas and Hanukkah, when things, when folks get together. So what in dealing with all of these issues, right? Because there's, as I said, there's a lot to unpack. What do you suggest to your patients who might be dreading the holidays, or who might be obviously identifying that, yes, I'm going to have trouble? What is there some strategies that you like to help them with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are really a lot of really good strategies to, sort of manage stress and really try to keep up our emotional wellness at the holidays. And there is a strategy that I talk to people about. I've sort of adapted for the holidays, and the strategy is called the cope ahead skill. And it's from an approach called dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. And DBT is really an approach that basically helps us develop skills for living effectively and solving problems. And I find that it's a really helpful frame to help folks plan ahead and manage as well as we can during the holidays.
Okay.
Yeah. So this cope ahead skill sort of helps us in two ways. First, it's cope ahead. It's just what the name says. So, Betty, we just talked about how the holidays can be a vulnerable time for
Hmm.
many of us. And so, in coping ahead, you don't want to have something uh, that creates vulnerability come up right in the middle of everything, and then have to suddenly figure out how to deal with the problem, or maybe you're having um, big emotions or feelings. You don't really want to have to deal with that on your feet suddenly in a moment with everything that's going on around you.
Okay.
Um, Ideally, the best way is to plan ahead, or in this case, coping ahead with those issues um, before they're just popping up at you. And so it really is just starting with taking a moment or two to think ahead about the kinds of things you might encounter that could be stressful, and have a plan first, so you don't get overwhelmed or stuck without a way to support yourself
Okay.
in those moments. And if painful emotions arise, or if you're, you know, needing to make some decisions in the moment.
Okay.
So that's the first part of cope ahead, is really just making sure that you're you're thinking ahead. And I think the idea is to pick some strategies that, you can start today, you can start right now,
Okay.
that really will give you a good foundation for emotional wellness moving through the holidays. So, first, when I talk to people about coping ahead with the holidays, I mean, I think first we got to start with some of the healthy strategies that we probably all know are really important. That sort of the trifecta of sleep, nutrition, exercise,
Nothing,
which
nothing new here, right? So,
nothing new here, right? So, trying to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, eating your fruits and veggies, 30 minutes of some kind of exercise a day. And all of that is great. It's fantastic for stress management and emotional wellness. But, let's be honest, it's like the first thing to go
right,
a lot of
right,
times when we're in a busy
right.
time like the holidays can be. I mean, I know it is for me,
Yep.
when things get stressful. So I really try to recommend focusing on just of those three things. Pick a couple of small things that you can do in that arena. For example, like a lot more of us are working from home.
Mm.
We're sitting in front of a computer for hours, and
Right, right.
too much of that over time is not good for your health or stress management. There is a saying that I heard recently that sitting is the new smoking in terms of, I
Oh,
know, in
wow.
terms of
Oh,
negative
wow.
health impact. That one hit me.
Wow, yeah. Wow.
So, that's a whole lot to think about. So it really, I think, underscores like finding a way to move, for example, has to work into your routine that you already have, to make it work and actually do it. So, I mean, many of us dream about we'll go to the gym, and I'll speak for myself. I'm always thinking that's right. I'm going to go do this big workout, and when things get really busy,
Yeah.
I may not do that. So,
Yep.
I just recommend thinking about it this way, like working in, if it's movement, think about, each time you go to the bathroom, for example, afterward, adding a couple of minutes of movement, whether
Yeah.
you can do jumping jacks, or maybe for you, it's just gentle yoga moves or a quick walk at lunch. We know now through research that these, few minutes here, 5 to 10 minutes, a couple times a day, has a really big health, impact on your health and managing stress levels. And it's really just as good as if you have those big workouts a couple times a week, as long as you can kind of stay consistent. So,
Right. It doesn't have to be difficult, right? I mean, even that finding time might be difficult. The actual activity is not, like taking a walk or, like you said, getting up during the day to stretch. I actually, when I'm at headquarters, and we have stairs at headquarters, right? And so you have to
mhm.
walk up the stairs, and I'm grateful for that, because if I have to do something, I just do a run up down the stairs. It's like, it's just a little thing, but
Yeah.
it makes me feel like I'm doing something, because you're right. You're in meetings, you're on phone calls, you're in front of the computer, and you don't forget. You sit there for a while. I know a lot of us do that. Yeah. So it's not rocket science, right? Get some food, move a little.
That's
Uh,
right. The,
and
the
we
try
say it's true, but we tell patients that all the time, even with folks who struggle with diabetes, right? That some of the strategies that you're talking about would be employed just for medical issues as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the key is really, I think it's sort of what we were talking about the holidays. It's sort of why New Year's resolutions almost never work. It's because we come up
Right.
with these great big plans and these great big ideas.
Right.
And, we really are, oftentimes we're just not realistic about how to fit them into our life. And so I think that's the key is like really think of a couple small things.
Okay.
And I think about it like money in the bank. If you're just making little deposits over time, before you know it, you're sort of growing something, that's going to be really helpful. For me, in the word cope, C stands for check your perspective on the holidays. Um,
Okay.
and checking your perspective in sort of how you view the holiday, and if you have any shoulds about how things, like we talked about before, do you have sort of a perfectionistic idea, or you have a lot of shoulds around how the holiday should be?
Mhm.
Checking your perspective really starts with mindfulness.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
and, we talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is really just practicing, noticing, and being fully in a moment and accepting that moment as is. Not trying to change it, but just really experiencing the moment that you're in. So, in the holidays, things can be kind of chaotic, they can be busy. So, you can do mindfulness practice wherever you are and doing whatever you might be doing, by just telling yourself in your mind, just stop, take a deep breath, and take a second to just notice what's around you.
Mhm.
And just by doing that, and there are lots of other ways to practice mindfulness, but just by doing that simple, 4-second thing, it's kind of like throwing an anchor down in the water,
Hmm.
to help you stay
Okay.
centered
Yeah.
if you're feeling kind of chaotic, or if things are really busy around you. So practicing mindfulness is sort of first, and it allows you to be present. And if you're present, then you can think about and change how you might be looking at situations during the holiday. Um, you know, I think about the one thing really we can sort of really control, is how we choose to think about things.
Yeah.
Can't always change or
Right.
can certainly control, and we know this, what happens around us, and life can throw a lot of things your way. Um, but you can control what perspective you sort of take on things.
True.
Yeah. So, like an example, in any moment in the holidays, there's going to be things that are good and pleasant and fun. And there's also going to be things that are also a little unpleasant too. I mean, that's just life, right? It
Yeah.
always
Exact.
comes with,
Right.
with
Right.
both. And, so like I think if I'm driving, for example, to see a loved one that I cannot wait to have time with, there's also going to be traffic on the
Right.
road,
I
and
was just gonna say.
delays, and,
Right.
right?
Right.
And people
Right.
who cut you off and that
Plan
kind of
ahead.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's irritating. So, in any moment, there's going to be things in that moment that are pleasant and joyful and exciting. And you just got to accept that that goes hand in hand with things that are probably less pleasant too. And the thing about perspective that's so important is perspective is what you choose to focus on, right?
Okay.
So if
Yep.
the main thing you focus on and seek out are those things that are sort of pleasant in the moment, you're probably going to feel pretty good.
Mhm.
But if you seek out or only focus on things that are unpleasant, then you're likely to feel a lot more annoyed and upset throughout, right?
Sure.
So
Right.
if I'm only focusing on the fact that that guy cut me off on the road and there's delays and traffic was awful,
Right.
I might miss those beautiful moments of being with my loved one once I really,
Right.
get to be with that person.
Right. You'll be cranky when you get there.
You're going to be cranky when you get there, which is going to, interfere with that moment too.
And
Yeah.
what's the O mean?
um, well, there is one more C I want to throw at you
Oh,
for,
okay. Okay.
yeah, why not? So C is also for control. Control what you can, and it kind of goes along with the
Oh,
perspective bit.
okay.
So we're talking about the holidays, and I'll give my own example of control what I can. One thing that is hard to control in my family anyway is like talking about or somebody bringing up politics at the family dinner
Uh-oh.
over the holidays.
No,
And
no, no.
yeah, and that's something I think a lot of us are managing these days. And I think for me, that's just not a fulfilling idea of how I want to spend my time,
Right.
debating over
Right.
politics. So,
Right.
and I've learned you can't always control what other people may do, but I can control, how I decide ahead of time to respond to it. So, this example maybe of politics is, just planning ahead where you have a little sentence or something like, that's interesting. But I'm trying a no politics policy this year and see how that goes over. Or even, I got to check something in the kitchen. It's just something. It's an example of something I can control. You can control, and you
Okay.
can think about that sentence ahead of time. So if it pops up, you're ready. You have it in your back pocket.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that does bring us to O for options.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So options is just that, again, coping ahead and spending a little time when you visualize what those potholes might be for you during the holiday. You want to just come up with a list, kind of brainstorm a list of options that could work for you in those situations.
Okay.
It's really coming up with like just a couple good practical strategies that'll help you out. So for example, we've talked about some of the ways holidays can make us feel vulnerable. So for example, if you can't be with family or you're just feeling lonely during the holidays, a strategy, don't wait. If there is somebody that you can reach out to, pick that person and don't wait for someone to think to call you. Schedule it, take charge.
Okay.
Schedule
Okay.
time with that person. Use
Okay.
FaceTime. You can also do some sort of creative ideas to connect with people because having a support network is so important. So if you're not able to connect in person, ask family to share photos with you, or
Oh,
even
okay. Yeah.
like send a playlist
Okay.
to you.
Okay.
It's sort of, an example of a way to, sort of feel someone who loves you thinking about you in a unique way.
That's
And it really can help you feel closer. So there's different ways of doing that. I mean, for folks who are dealing with grief and loss at the holidays, I think it's important to not push those emotions away.
mhm.
Um, it's the holidays are not a time where we kind of put those feelings in a closet and experience something and then come back to them.
Right.
They're all part of being human, part of the holidays, and part of everything. So if you're sad, don't push it away.
Right.
Allow yourself to feel that, express that to someone who's a support for you. And I think also you can really plan a way to bring that person you've lost, your loved one, into the holiday. Make sure
Mhm.
that there's a time where you can share memories and stories with people who also love that person. So those are strategies of sort of, coping with those feelings is to really be with them,
Right.
accept
Right.
them and find ways to,
Yeah. I still have my mom made a ceramic Christmas tree in 1976. When they were big, I guess. And I still have it. And every year I bring it out and decorate it, put the lights in, and it's just a little moment, but I have her Christmas tree, so it's kind of cool.
absolutely, that's such a perfect example. So any kinds of ideas like that are so important, and making them a tradition even better. I was just thinking, I think we touched on earlier, just if how the holidays can also be stressful just because of the finances of all of it.
Yes.
Or particularly these days,
Yeah. Everything's more expensive. You
everything's
know.
more expensive,
Yeah.
and money is tight, and oftentimes families can get really hit with a lot of financial stress over the holidays. So, another example of options, if finances are stressing you out as they do for a lot of us, you can decide ahead to even think about doing some more unconventional gifts, for example, like
Hmm.
especially with adults. I feel like, I don't know, a lot of us really have more than we need.
Yeah.
And
Correct. We
so
don't.
We don't
I,
need any more stuff.
right. A friend of mine once said that the best gift is time, right? To do something with someone, right?
Absolutely.
So you have a memory of that time, or you look forward to every Christmas or every holiday season, you're going to go to see the tree lighted, something.
Mhm. Right,
Yeah.
which is, sort of a low cost, no cost,
Yeah.
wonderful thing to do, to give to someone and to get from somebody. I was just thinking about my own example. In my family, the adults decided a long time ago, and it's been such a great thing to just really think about. We do sort of a secret Santa, and we give each other kind of unconventional um, gifts and requests. So one year, my Secret Santa request was for me to bake a coconut cake and then to read a very long poem. Um, so, I practiced that poem and it was fun. It was like a little performance and it really didn't cost anything. And I have to say it's one of my favorite memories. We had
Uh,
such a great time. We all laughed so much
that's
around.
great. That's great.
Yeah. So those are great ideas. And I think, one other last maybe example for options is particularly if you're the one, and there's always one of us who sort of does everything, and is the one who's handling a lot of the jobs of a holiday.
Uh-huh.
It's really important to plan some enjoyable activity in each day that are not holiday obligations and just for you.
Hmm.
And it can be so simple. Um, I'm a huge Elton John fan, right?
Okay. Okay.
So I'm a little bit addicted to, watching his. It could just be a song or part of a performance on YouTube. So
Okay.
you can find those things and it's like 2 or 3 minutes that just put a smile on your face, or maybe it's a comedy or a funny movie you've seen a million times, but you just love it. Um, just having that little dose in the day is helpful for both your emotional wellness and to keep you centered and to kind of give yourself a little mini break. You know, I think too, or even if it's nighttime, another good option, particularly if you're having trouble sleeping, but also just a way to kind of carve out a minute for yourself. And somebody taught me this is to just lay down at night. And as you are, kind of coming off of the day, you can put two hands. You can't see me, but just put two hands sort of right on your chest.
Uh-huh.
And just do some deep breathing, like in for 4 counts and like exhale for 6 or 8. And you just think of two things you're grateful for during the day.
That's a nice way to end the day.
It really is. It's a great option. And for some of us, it could be, wow, you got some great time with someone you really love and you're grateful for that. And sometimes it might be just, I am grateful for breathing in and out today. And that's okay too.
Exactly.
You
Right.
just find that thing. But
Yeah.
whatever it is, I think it's important for us to think of enjoyment and gratitude a little like medicine, right? That you just give yourself some small doses throughout the day and it does wonders for your emotional wellness and helps to sustain your emotional wellness through the holidays and beyond. So that's a lot of options. I want to do P and E of COPE. P is for plan, and really simply, this is the who, what, where, and when of the plan. So once you've come up with options that will really help you with anything that creates some vulnerability for you, you want to select a few of those options, jot them down, and the plan is really looking at how's this going to work, right? Where you're going to use your options, who else needs to know about them, who else needs to be part of it. It's really just taking a moment, and I suggest write out COPE and write your plan. And E finally is for execute that plan.
Finally,
right?
we execute the plan. It's like
now you're there. That's right. So, I mean, you need to have a plan to be sure your plan's going to happen, if that makes sense. So I always recommend share this plan with somebody. And they're the ones who can check on it with you, who can remind you about it, who can sort of keep you accountable to the plan you have in place.
Okay.
That's going to help you with really, managing stress during the holiday, keeping your emotional wellness up, and hopefully having a happy holiday.
Right. Happy as happy as you're going to be. Right.
That's right. That's right.
Doesn't have to be, it's a wonderful life. Happy.
I'm glad you mentioned that again, Betty, because,
Right.
In the beginning you talked about Norman Rockwell, and right. I think one final feeling I have on that is that, I think if we can take the shoulds out of our holidays,
Amen.
and just not really think, oh, I should be this way, or my holiday should look this way, but really, kind of take that out of it and allow, put your plan in place and kind of find your enjoyment where it is and be mindful of that. And I think that really helps.
Those are all great suggestions, and I've written some of them down. I do feel like I have been able to manage the holidays better as I've grown older. But I do appreciate many of the suggestions. But Susan, let me ask you this. Like, I know that obviously you're working with patients. If patients aren't connected to a therapist, are there options for them or resources for them that might be free or low cost? I just want to make sure before we end that we provide some resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, one of the things to know is that for many, if not most therapists who are out there, they will have their fee, but they also will have sessions that they can offer at a sliding fee scale. So depending on your resources, you can really negotiate with a therapist and decide on a fee that works for you and doesn't break the budget and allows you to get therapy. There are also many agencies around. Resources for Human Development is just one of them. There are many that you can call that will connect you with low cost or no cost therapy services through their outpatient centers.
Great.
So that's another option.
Great. And I'm sorry that I'm closing on this note, but for folks who might be dealing or might be in crisis or maybe having thoughts of suicide, what resources are available to them?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that has just come out recently, I believe this summer, is the National 988 hotline.
Okay, great.
Which is a wonderful resource because that is a number you can call, just 988, and it's staffed 24/7 with counselors who are there and will really talk with you about getting through the crisis and linking you with resources in your area. So
Great.
That's just a really important resource for everybody to know about.
Absolutely. Right. And I do appreciate that they've shortened that and made it much easier to remember for folks, even for healthcare folks to know. I know many of our nurses have referred, just to tell people about it in case there was a need. Susan, thank you. I appreciated all of the suggestions and just your, I guess your thoughtfulness about it. Obviously, you're working with a lot of patients and helping them. So thank you very much for taking the time to share it with us.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Betty. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. Happy holidays to you and your family. I hope you have a good memories about I hope you're not doing a poem this year.
We'll see.
Okay.
Well, happy holidays to you too.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you to all of our listeners for following this season's episodes. If you missed any, you can always find them on the Guardian Nurses website. We hope you enjoyed this season's episodes, and we look forward to bringing you more topics and guests in season 5. Until then, be kind, pet all the good kitties and doggies, and tell your people that you love them. Take care.